This month, I've had the pleasure of speaking to a legendary, multi-award winning rave DJ, producer and engineer who's had a very interesting life and career. I had the honour of working with Al Storm this month, who helped me piece together his hardcore history. We'll get to that soon, but first, for those who are new here, I'm Stuart and this is Hardcore History. Every month, I take a look at the DJs, MCs and singers of our happy hardcore past. We're on episode 13, and as Halloween is not far away, I thought I would let the dark shadows come out from their lurking as I tell you what I've learned about Al this month. Let's get into it. This is Alex Taylor. Well, it's Alistair officially, Scottish spelling and not a name he ever liked. He much prefers Alex, or the name for which he is professionally known, Al Storm. Alex was born in Kingston, London in 1980 to a half Norwegian mother and a Scottish father. When he was very young, he moved from London to Norway for a while before moving back to the UK. As a kid, Al was always obsessed with horror movies and had walls of horror VHS tapes by the age of 10, with posters and cardboard cutouts acquired from a friend's video store of monsters, disemboweled corpses and zombies. Musically, Al was a rock fan early on and got into hip-hop late in the 80s. It was in the early 90s that he discovered rave music through his much older brother. Druid, Seduction and Slipmatt were heroes of Taylor's and huge influences in his musical journey. He was drawn to the energy of the music and was blown away after hearing breakbeat and vocal samples from some of the hip-hop tracks he knew, sped up and thrown into this sample-fueled music. Knowing the career path he wanted to follow, Alex left school early and started attending raves aged 12. He used to spend every penny he got in record shops such as Lucky Spin in Chelsea and Troublesome Records in Kingston. Later you could find him leafing through the records at Trademark in Aldershot or Remix Records. In 1994, Al started to work for the Vinyl Frontier record shop in Woking, alongside Toby Scopes, who went on to become one half of Jungle Giant's Serial Killers. At the time, Toby was part of the group Chimera and had a few tunes on the Jungle and drum and bass label Back to Basics. He had a bedroom studio and Al used to spend time there after the shop some days going through Toby's unreal collection of hip-hop and samples. Those studio sessions didn't lead to our star progressing his musical career in terms of releasing music, but it did ignite his newfound love for sampling. It's also worth noting that during his time at Vinyl Frontier, Alex made another connection to D&B artist Blade, who we'll be coming back to again shortly. Late in 1995, Alex started to help out at Alpha Magic in Putney. He thinks he just turned up one day to look at some records and hung around until they let him stay. But it was through this time that Al met a guy called Ian Radcliffe, also known as DJ Synergy. Together they wrote a track called Cocaine, which sampled the film Basic Instinct and multiple elements from DJ Isaac's track Happy Hardcore Freak. It went unreleased for a couple of years but was played out a lot by Seduction, who was one of the first people to start supporting Al's work. In 1996, Al got together again with Synergy to create what became Taylor's first ever vinyl release. Uncredited and under Fade and Banana Man's alias Who Done It or Not sampled the Fugees' Ready or Not. After its release, Al went on a tour of his favourite engineers and spent a fortune to try and learn from the likes of Luna C, Ham, Demo, Fade and Banana Man, Unknown, Trixie, Devastate, DNA and John Doe. He gained valuable knowledge and came out of those sessions with some incredible music and methods for production and engineering that he still uses to this day. As 1997 hit, DJ Storm saw his track Getting Busy licensed to Hardcore Heaven Volume 2, as Vibe used the track in his mix. This was Al's first compilation license. Also around this time, Storm had written another track called I Want Your Love, mostly instrumental and engineered by Ham. The track was later picked up for Mark Breezy's compilation called The World of Breeze, From Here to Infinity. Chris Grayston of Fusion heard the track and enlisted the talents of Donna Grassi to record a vocal for it. He drove Al up to Ham's studio to draft a new version for Fusion's A Point to Be Made album. This became Love Is the Only Way, and Al's second proper album license. It was the early support from Chris and Seduction that really helped to propel Al into the limelight within the scene. 1997 was also the year that I found Al to be collaborating with Mr. Blade again and John Doe on his Morgan Records label with some freeform goodness. Blade pops up a few times in Al's story, and together with Luna Sea, they created Dark Zone, which was the first ever Dark Shadow style track in 1997. By 1998, Al was only 18 years old and without a permanent place to live. He was living out of the back warehouse of the EMI building in Hayes, sleeping on piles of old records in boxes. As he was spending so much time at Alpha Magic, the decision was made to move his studio and merge it with Fade and Banana Man's. Alex would spend time with David and Darren as they were both engineering and taught our young engineer in making how to use studio gear correctly. They became huge influences to Al from this point on, with Fade signing Get Busier for his Fused Up label. Out of those sessions together, many of DJ Storm's early huge tracks and remixes were born, including remixes of Seduction's Subdub. Here's a little known fact for you. Did you know that Hixie came over to the studio to record the scratching on the jungle part of that remix? And remixes of Fireworks by Force and Styles, and Zurich, Beating of My Heart, and Funky Drums. As we moved towards the end of the 90s, Al left Alpha Magic and rented a small industrial unit in Stevenage with Synergy and moved the studio and Al's home there. It wasn't the most productive time, and he found himself mostly doing solo projects and experimenting with sampling and sounds, although a couple of notable tracks came out of that studio. The SMD4 remix and the Silk Cuts release My Favourite Game appeared from sessions in Stevenage. A few months later, Al found himself again between places and living for a brief spell under the studio desk at Coleman's, aka Herman's. Together they wrote a version of Nookie's Sound of Music that never got finished, and ultimately moved into a bigger house to merge their studios. This was the start of the Storm and Herman productions and the formation of Rain Dance Records. With little to no experience running record labels, the pair would hand-deliver stock to record shops, take bags of records to sell at the raves, and even load their suitcases with stock to deliver when on tour in America, Japan, and Australia. As I always do, I went flyer hunting before writing this video to see which of the big raves I could find the DJ Storm name on. I came up short at every avenue, so I asked Al about this. Playing out was never something that he was overly bothered about at the time. He just loved making music and collecting records, and was a self-confessed train spotter for hardcore vinyl, and still buys them daily. I thought I was getting bad. He did have a set of decks, and so long as his memory serves correctly, his first DJ gig was in 1994 at an under-18s event at Options Cinema in Kingston, playing drum and bass and jungle. He has played some radio stations, including Sense FM and Eruption, and at some squat parties in Hackney, playing a lot of gabba. When the scene split in 1993 and everyone was making their choices whether to explore jungle and drum and bass or head down the hardcore path, Alex chose to go in both directions and frequently could be found in Stearns, Rhythm Station, World Dance, the Laserdrome and the Hippodrome in London. This was as a raver and not a performer. There was still a lot of excitement for Al to go out and see who would play his tracks out. By the end of the 90s, Alex was playing at Labyrinth in Tottenham a lot as a backup DJ. He remembers playing 6 sets one night for Dreamscape Millennium after a load of DJs didn't show. It was the formation of Rain Dance Records that really started to get the bookings coming in for the likes of Slamming Vinyl and United Dance at Bagley's from early 2000 onwards. Alex spent a lot of time in America and ended up working in a recording studio in Toronto, Canada for a year or so, which brought with it collabs with Phosphor, AC Slater and Sunrise, some of which were later released on Storm's label Destructive Force. But before we get to Destructive Force, we need to discuss its parent, Warped Science.
Interrupted this program.
I've just finished up on a call with Looks like there's going to be an episode of where I'm the guest. Thanks for having me on. So, what's going on here in Hardcore History Land? Well, I can record mixes again thanks to my shiny new Traktor S5. It's very fancy and it's the ultimate live edit creator. Next month's mix will be me again, and if you stick around till the end, I'll let you know who I'm looking at next. Thanks to both Andy and Paul who jumped in on the last two mixes, and please go and find them on their platforms. Let's share some of this love around. The end of the year is approaching quickly, and I've changed my original schedule because how we've grown this year, we should go out with a bang. I can't confirm the details in full yet, but I can tell you that if I pull it off, it will tick a name off the list that a lot of you have been asking for a long time. No more spoilers until I can get a bit closer to the starting line with it. Let's get back to the video. After around a year of working for the studio in Canada, Alex decided it was time to come home, and Michael Gregg, also known as DJ Euphony, was drafted in as his replacement. Michael ended up not taking the job and instead took a trip down to Al and Herman's studio where they got to making music. The pair had previously worked together touring in America under the name The Euphony Project and did consider this name for their first release, instead choosing to go by Storm and Euphony, and with ideas to release on their own brand new record label, the excitingly different The Red Pill became Warp Science's first release in October 2003. At the time that Warp Science launched, Alex was working on and off for IMO Records and helping to start the distribution department with DJ Spinback as a way to press and distribute all of the Warp Science, Destructive Force, Cloned, Underground Recordings, Moondance and many other labels from IMO. After a couple more releases, and by 2004, Alex got in touch with his good friend Nick Arnold of the group Bang, as our duo had produced some remixes and wanted to release them on their label. They'd produced a few other remixes for Nick, and on their release would feature new remixes of the tracks Lost in Space and Sunshine on a Cloudy Day. Fun fact, the duo's mix of Bang's Hyperspace appeared as the theme on the BBC coverage of the World Cup semi-finals in 2010. They got the go-ahead to release and followed it with Into the Night from Gamma, with Resource on the flip, and the white single-sided vinyl Don't Cry For Me remix, setting the tone for the label. And from there, Warp Science releases started to feature big names from the scene, both on vinyl and the dance floor. In 2002, Al and Mike wrote a track called Breathe and planned to release it on Warp Science, but Hixie wanted the track for Raver Baby. This opened new doors for the pair with collaborations with Hixie and Darren Styles for his Junkbox label. Al was later signed to Raver Baby around the same time as Technicore, Enemy and Static. Having spent so much time in studios over the years, learning from some of the engineering greats of our time, it makes sense that Alex went on to engineer for other people too. After a collaboration with DJ Seduction called Make the Track Spin, Alex took a lot of engineering work from Seduction, not because he was unable to himself, but because Alex was fast, creative and extremely capable in using the software. He was involved in about 90% of Seduction's tracks and remixes up until around 2010 when Maximum Impact stopped. It was a truly crazy period for Alex, who had gone from being the 12-year-old curtain-heard train spotter who used to hang around JTS and Music House and hound everyone for DATs or dub plates, hanging over the decks to find out what track is being played, to engineering for Seduction, Slipmat, LSD and a whole load of other guys whose music had gotten him into the rave scene. When the burnout from engineering started to set in, Al flipped the switch on it and chose to focus mostly on the new Al Storm music, as although uncredited work was rather well paid, it wasn't getting his name out there enough. There are a hell of a lot of credits out there, including official remixes for The Prodigy, hidden in plain sight of course, as seems to have been the MO of our guy so far. Around the mid-2000s, Alex was living in Milton Keynes with Easy Vibe and Orbit One. Also, Seduction used to rent a studio room there. The Warp Science releases had slowed down a bit, and Al was looking for something fresh to go with his new sound. He'd never been a fan of the name DJ Storm and wanted to change it. After trying his legal name on for size and a conversation with Hixie, who suggested everyone called him Al anyway, Alex settled on Al Storm, the name we've come to know him by, and with the rebrand came a new label, 24/7 Hardcore, created as an outlet for his productions, with Surrender being the first release on the label in 2009. It's arguably the biggest track he's done, definitely the most requested, and sold out on its red vinyl, with Hixie taking the Clubland mix for Extreme Hardcore 6 and releasing it on Raver Baby. The biggest leg up that Hixie gave Al in his rebrand was when he booked him for a Raver Baby event, helping to further showcase his new sound and, more importantly, let everyone know that Al Storm had arrived. Interestingly, considering the extensive career that Alex had, a few years after he changed his name, he won the Best Breakthrough DJ award, and still to this day is asked if he's the DJ Storm of the 90s. 24/7 Hardcore became an outlet for all the music that didn't go to Raver Baby, and there was a lot. At the time, Alex was writing 7 or 8 tracks every week. Now in the process of rebranding again, Al wants to bring the fun back to 24/7 and its group of sub-labels. There's a label restructure underway, with Voodoo Panda merging into 24/7 Hardcore as the focus becomes one powerhouse of a label with less strict approaches to genres. All kinds of hardcore under one brand, with other genres getting the 24/7 stamp so long as the quality fits. Keen to maintain the solid roots that the label has built over the years, there'll always be a hardcore version on the release, but it can't hurt to expand a little on what they do. I've been told there's a hectic schedule planned from October 2023 onwards, with 3 to 4 singles per week going into 2024. The compilations that we've grown to love will resume after a little break, and Ali's hitting the rebrand hard with small intimate parties around Derby, testing the water before trying something more national is what I've heard. Storm and Euphony have returned with a brand new project called Bad Onion, which is a labour of love for the pair, and as Euphony is no longer really involved with the scene, a good enough excuse for the duo to make music together. Bad Onion came about when Al and Mike, who had already put a few slower rave monsters together, put forward the idea of a label to Chris Howell, aka Lunacy, and owner of the Night Force brand, as something they could work on into their twilight years. Chris had been another long-time friend of Al's who'd been doing some work for his label alongside Billy Diachronic. If I could pause a second, just say, wow, Alex Taylor has got a lot of friends who've been good friends with him for a long time. I feel like I've been name-dropping this entire episode, but it says a lot for Alex. So our duo sent some tracks over to Chris, who loved them and wanted to sign them all for Night Force. After a bit of haggling, they agreed to create Bad Onion alongside Night Force as a best of both worlds for everyone involved. Recently, they've performed at a nightclub event, and Al is continuing to cross off bucket list items by playing alongside, writing tracks and remixing for Messiah, NRG, The House Crew and The Criminal Minds, some of the guys who've inspired him to make music all those years ago. Dark Shadows is a series created by Al Storm in 2010, which has just seen the release of the 9th and 10th instalments. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the first track to feature the Dark Shadows style was Dark Zone in 1997, which sampled a vocal from Hellraiser. As a huge horror fan himself, Al loved to sample weird noises and voices from the films, and by 2010 he had a catalogue of quirky hardcore and rave tracks such as Werewolf, Trick or Treat and Poltergeist. Halloween was coming, and so Al approached Hardcore Underground about releasing a Halloween-themed album just for a bit of fun for him. The rest, as they say, is history. The original Trick or Treat is now approaching 1 million streams on Spotify, with Al seeing the benefits of streaming and the way it reaches totally different audiences. The track Dirt Devils from Dark Shadows 3 found its way onto the official Netflix playlist for the series Love, Death and Robots. You could tell that Al's a vinyl lover from the many different colours colours that the warp science releases came in. It certainly made for interesting research, and after the conversations we've had this month, I can tell he's not only a funny bloke, but he's a real nice chap too. His knowledge in the game of music production and engineering is vast, and even if you've been living under a rock and never heard an Al Storm track, if you've heard much hardcore from the golden 90s or early 2000 days, it seems there's a pretty good chance Alex might have had his fingers in it. Devil. Thank you so much for sticking around to learn a little more about Al Storm. There's actually so much more information, but I couldn't pack it into this video. After last month's 40-minute monster, I'm trying to get us back to the 20-minute videos. They're far easier on my schedule. Next month, it's my birthday, so I thought I'd take us outside of the UK to see how the Dutch do hardcore. I'm going to be taking on the one and only DJ Paul Elstak, and I know how long you've waited for this, so now's your opportunity to slap the subscribe button, and if you're going to do that, you might as well do the same with the like button. There's going to be some links and tags flash up on screen now for if you want to get hold of me on Facebook, Instagram or by email, where to find my SoundCloud and Mixcloud pages, and finally where you need to go if you want to join these amazing people who've joined the Hardcore History Club this month. Got to give a special shout out to this guy too for your gift. You are very kind, and for that I'd like to share your link. Only went and wrote a track because he was inspired by the Freeform video. Of course, huge shout out and thanks to Alex. It's been an honour to work with you, sir. I look forward to us grabbing a beer together if you can find a babysitter one night for all those kids. I'll see you next time.